Hello, everybody. How are we all doing today? Welcome to Glenn's Dynamic Sports Corner on 12OZSportsRadio.com. I am your host, Glenn Kaplan. We are live in a beautiful, wonderful, sunny Baltimore, Maryland today. And I wish I was doing this show outside on my back porch or outside and not in the basement of my home. Because had my laptop not crashed instead of me doing it on the home computer a while back, I would have been doing this show outside on a nice breezy day today, sunny day outside. But instead, this still works, still does the job. This is the 66th show that I'm doing here today. So I hope you all are staying safe. I love you all. It's watching movies, during the coronavirus pandemic. Hopefully the state of Maryland opens up sooner rather than later. I hope the stay-at-home order gets lifted by the end of the week, but we'll see what Governor Hogan decides to do. So I'm just holding my breath on that. And we have a lot of interesting sports topics to get into today. But the first thing I want to get into today is with breaking news and sad news, is that Miami Dolphins legendary head coach Don Shula has passed away at the age of 90. And in 1972, he led the Dolphins to 17-0, only undefeated team ever in the history of the NFL. I think a lot of you know about the other potential 18-0 New England Patriots, and the Giants gave them that only loss. So the Dolphins are the only undefeated team in NFL history. They won back-to-back titles at 72 and 73. And Shula, including the postseason, has 347 career wins as a coach, and he also led them to 5 Super Bowls. That's pretty impressive. See, when I looked this up, when I saw it this morning that Don Shula was the all-time NFL's winning head coach, I thought everyone talks about, Vince Lombardi. No, Shula's got the most wins all time for an NFL coach. And the best coach now we got is Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. So I feel for Shula's family today, all the Dolphins fans and everybody else out there. And he was definitely an NFL legend. In the NFL Hall of Fame, he was the heartbeat and the heart and soul of the Dolphins for all those years. So he was a leader. He was terrific. Do you know what they say with coaches? You got to be a tremendous teacher. You got to be a this. You got to be a that. So it's like that's what you have to be. Teachers got to lead. They got to beat the heartbeats and the heart and souls of their respective teams. So let's get going into other topics today. Let's see. Okay. All right. The more I get to watch this documentary, the more film and the more we get to know about Michael Jordan. So, do any of you guys want to tell me this morning that what's being shown on here is not true? What I mean by that is all the stuff about, Jordan wouldn't do this, Jordan wouldn't do that. Here we are, and now we're seeing it with our own very eyes. He gambled. Yes, he did. Yes, he did gamble. He did gamble. And the media took it really badly. And one of the reasons why Michael Jordan retired was because he was, quote, mentally exhausted with how the media basically portrayed him. Okay, let's get started here with the media nonsense. The media in the 1990s was nothing. Here we are sitting here in 2020. The media is a dominating factor in a lot of these sports. And that's why people lose their jobs. And that's why pressure gets to these people, and that's why they fold. And I'm not going to sit here today and say Jordan would have folded with the media because Jordan would have had to share his titles had he played in the social media era. I'm not going to be that silly, and I'm not going to be that obnoxious about it. But I am going to point out one thing, is that he could have been very immature about it. And the question would have been, would he have been the GOAT had he played in this era? And a lot of other factors to go with it. So here's what I'm going to say about this whole GOAT business. And I'm not taking my stance for 1 second and going to say that LeBron James is ever better than Michael Jordan, because I'm not going to do that. What I am going to say is, if you're supposedly the greatest of all time, is it just about what you do on the court, or is it about what you do on and off the court? If it's just about on the court, there's no question that people believe that he's the greatest, and to all of that. But if it is about on and off the court, this documentary is telling me he's not the greatest of all time. As a pure, strict basketball player, no doubt of his talent whatsoever. But isn't it about the way you act, the way you lead, and the way you do other things in your life? You have to be respectful to the media. You have to represent yourself in a way off the court that you're not going to get a bad image towards. Because if Michael Jordan had gambled today, that would have been a bad image, and it kind of looks bad now. Because the image of Jordan when he gambled, yes, I know it was a calming factor so he could get his mind off basketball. I get it. You want to have fun in your life, sure. But there is one thing I give him credit for in the documentary. If he had a gambling problem, he would have betted on his house, and he would have betted on a lot of other things, which he is correct about. But the great players, yes, I know, and this is why I always say, and I have told people this, and I'm not BSing anyone that I've told this to before. My two greatest players who have ever played the game are Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain. That's who I believe is always the two greatest players. And I'm not holding back against it. And no, I'm not one of these people that's going to say MJ and LeBron's 1-2. No, I'm not those kind of people. And no, I never watched Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain play. But those two, based off of history and other factors, make me believe they're the two greatest. There is a reason why the NBA Finals MVP trophy is named after Bill Russell. And yes, he had all of these Hall of Famers on the Boston Celtics. But we're just going to sit here this morning and pretend that Bill Russell isn't a top two great all time, and we're just going to sit here and pretend it's always Michael Jordan and LeBron? And I'm not arguing if you want to put Michael Jordan number one. That's fine. You want to put MJ one? I get it. And I know a friend of mine, close friend of mine on the show, Tyler Forensics, calls me an MJ hater. But if I was an MJ hater, I would always say that LeBron is better than MJ at anything, no matter what. And I like LeBron. I'll tell you first, I like LeBron. And I'm not changing my stance. But the truth of the matter is, this documentary is revealing things about Michael Jordan that personality-wise, that were like as a person, as a strict person, not a basketball player. There is a major difference between the two. And if you don't see the difference between the two, then you're completely oblivious. As a strict basketball player, Michael Jordan is great. As a human being, he's not the GOAT at that whatsoever. Not a chance. Because he always had some... Yeah, sure, people have a lot of selfish attitudes. But Michael Jordan wasn't always the greatest teammate and always the greatest this either when it came to personality. And here's also something very interesting that we say about MJ about, oh, he takes the last shot all the time. No. Game 6 against the Suns. James Paxton makes the game-winning three. Yes, I know MJ won the NBA Finals MVP, but do you still, I guess you could say, credit for him for taking the last shot? Yeah, I get it was like to him, to Horace Grant, to James Paxton. Yeah, they still won the finals. Mazel tov and all that stuff. But this documentary, I think, is revealing some very interesting things. And I'm not saying that MJ, the player, is getting exposed, because that is obviously despicable on my part. But what's not despicable, maybe just a tad a little bit of getting exposed personality-wise, not as a basketball player, and I want to make that very clear with all you guys. Because there's obviously a difference between the two, and I'm going to compare this to this. Is there like a favorite baseball player or a teacher? Oh, let me say, better off a teacher here. Is there a teacher that you don't like as a teacher, but outside of the classroom, you don't mind at all? Or vice versa, per se. Like, you respect him as a teacher, but then don't like seeing him out. It's just something to that extent. What I'm going to say here in this situation. And I just find this very inspiring. And there's still 4 more episodes. And I'm real curious to see how the whole retirement thing is going to be in the next episodes or so. And this was very soul touching in the first episode yesterday, where rest in peace Kobe Bean Bryant, where they were showing him in the All-Star game in the 1990s at Madison Square Garden, and MJ to Kobe's like, I'll see you down the road. Wowza, wowza, wowza. Very touching. And I just think that because Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant were the faces of the leagues from that time on. And I know people were basically having tissues. And the old saying, I know a lot of people like to do this on social media too. When they see something that's very emotional to them, they'll post something like BRB crying. Something to that extent. And I'm pretty sure that's probably what happened a lot last night when they were watching the whole thing. And another couple, 1 or 2 more interesting parts about this is in 1993, the New York Knicks were actually a good basketball team. I did not know they were actually in the conference finals. And they had a 2-0 series lead. And someone was like on Twitter, where did it go all wrong for the New York Knicks? And want to know what's funny about this 93 series? So I decided to text my friend who's a Knicks fan. He doesn't respond back to me. And just for being a complete troll on Twitter, which sometimes I guess I kind of could be annoying at, so I know how big of a New York Knicks fan Stephen A. Smith is, so I did 2 things I tagged him in. Number 1, and I wish he spoke about this morning on First Take, I wanted to hear his take on the 1993 New York Knicks. I just wanted to hear and live for it to hear what he had to say about those Knicks, knowing that he's a diehard Knicks fan. Number 2, the video of Charles Smith basically being a Pillsbury Doughboy inside the paint, being a soft teddy bear in the final seconds where he couldn't hit a darn layup. He was just being soft, and Horace Grant blocked him a couple of times. And I basically tagged Stephen A. Smith in that too. And I can't imagine how gut-wrenching that must have felt for Knicks fans, because I know one of my uncles, Uncle Tom, he tells me that he couldn't stand Michael Jordan and the Bulls because they would always break the hearts and the citizens and New York Knicks fans. And I'm telling you, had I watched Michael Jordan growing up, I would have completely not... I'm going to tell you for the record that I probably would not have liked watching Michael Jordan growing up. I posted on my social media, but as I'm going to say as a player, you can't take away with what he's done. And I'm not a huge fan of his personality either. But I sound like a broken record at times, that I feel like, excuse me, I just feel like I just can't change my stance on it. So, and one other thing, before I get into my next segment, there are 2 tweets, and I'm going to be using a lot of tweets today here on this show, so bear with me on this. So Donovan Mitchell, the Utah Jazz's shooting guard, posted on Twitter, I just peeped, MJ had his own office in the team locker room, laughing emoji. So then, what I decided to write about on his tweet, I commented, maybe because he was also the general manager, too, just like what people say about LeBron James. And I did 10 thinking emojis. It's funny. With the whole, people say, oh, LeBron's the general manager, and this and that, and then MJ too. And then someone commented, MJ must have been a real good general manager. And then some people respond, how's that going with the Charlotte Hornets as the owner? Very interesting, because I know he hasn't exactly been the greatest drafter with the Charlotte Hornets. But this is interesting nonetheless. So, and here's another guy on Twitter, and my friend Justin Montalvo, a very close friend of the show, responded to this tweet afterwards, and I'll tell you what he said after he responded to this tweet. So a guy on Twitter, Barry at Real Tough Scene, posted this episode shows MJ was a mental midget who would have gone crazy if he played in the social media era where he had nowhere to hide his off the court BS and people constantly criticizing everything he did 24/7. The media was picking on me because I went to a gambling binge in Atlantic City after playing like S in a playoff game. It's so unfair. And then he also, this guy, meanwhile in LeBron's world, Skip Bayless. This was a few years ago. I'm not sure when this tweet was. This is just pathetic. LeBron is sitting on the scorer's table, chugging water, trying to show the gullible witnesses he's, quote, dehydrated. Next, we'll hear he's suffering from chronic fatigue syndrome. Unreal. I'm not sure when that tweet was, but my friend Justin Montalvo retweeted. He basically retweeted, this is one of the biggest losers on this app. I know how much my friend Montalvo loves Michael Jordan, so I figured he would say something like that. I figured he'd say something like that nonetheless. So, moving on to my next segment. How about them Cowboys? How about them Cowboys? Yes! How about them Cowboys signing Andy Dalton? And I'm going to say it right now in the wise words of Stephen A. Smith. They're an accident waiting to happen. And what can go wrong will go wrong because this Andy Dalton signing is an accident waiting to happen for the Dallas Cowboys. And I'm not saying that because I don't think Andy Dalton can play for them. I'm just saying it for the sole reason that they've taken a step back this offseason and they are blackballing Dak Prescott. And Dak Prescott, if I'm him right now, I wouldn't even show up to training camp and I would just go tell Jerry Jones to go take a hike and have a nice day. Because the Dallas Cowboys are going to be a train wreck this season. Yes, you heard it here first. The Dallas Cowboys will be a train wreck this season. And that's going to lead to the development of the New York Giants coming back and being relevant. You just love to see it. You love to see it on a day like today. Because it's going to be the Eagles that win that division anyways, and the Redskins are going to stink from the S to the K. That's all I have to say on that matter. But as for Andy Dalton signing a one-year deal with the Dallas Cowboys worth $7 million, I can't be more ecstatic right now to be talking about this. He signed a contract Saturday night. We'll see what happens with this move nonetheless, and this could get very dicey. So I saw on Twitter, if Dak Prescott isn't signed by July 15th, he could skip all of training camp and the preseason without consequence. Andy Dalton gives the Cowboys someone who can run the offense in Dak's absence. Well, here's the thing about Dalton. He actually has made it to the playoffs before. He's had some weapons. He had A.J. Green. He's had some other good players. Tyler Eifert. So let's see. He's got Amari Cooper. He has Ezekiel Elliott. He has Michael Gallup. He has CeeDee Lamb. So it's not like Andy Dalton doesn't know how to play with other players. With good players. Now, here's another question. Are we saying here? Is Jerry Jones really saying Andy Dalton is a better quarterback than Dak Prescott? Yeah, he's really saying that Dalton's a better quarterback than Dak Prescott. And that's Ryan, I know, is absolutely sick to his stomach saying that Dalton got paid before Dak. I can't believe it. That's actually happening. Yes, I know. And yes, I know I'm being a little silly and immature about it. But I just can't stop laughing and stop cracking up about it. That the fact that Jerry Jones paid Andy Dalton before he paid Dak Prescott. And I'm absolutely loving it right now. Because is Dalton maybe past it? Was Dalton playing that bad last year a sign of things to come? Or was it just because he had nothing really in Cincinnati that, okay, he gets a new fresh start in Dallas, like this could potentially be when Ryan Tannehill got traded from the Miami Dolphins to the Tennessee Titans and led them to the AFC Championship game. And oh yeah, the Dallas Cowboys haven't even got to the NFC Championship game in such a long time. So Dak Prescott completed 65.1% of his passes for 4,902 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions last year. Here's a question, and I'm dead serious about this. And I've said this on my show, maybe with a little biasing, maybe not trying to be a little biased, but there has to be a serious consideration this morning. I am sure somewhere right now, that Jason Garrett, the New York Giants offensive coordinator, is probably laughing somewhere that Dalton got money before Dak Prescott. Which raises the eyebrows. And I know Colin Cowherd has absolutely mentioned this on his show once before. He mentioned that Carson Wentz is obviously the best NFC East quarterback, which I couldn't agree with more. Is there a sense of doubt this morning that Jerry Jones doesn't believe Dak Prescott is even better than Daniel Jones? I mean, Jason Garrett may have the answer to that because he coached Prescott and now he's working with Daniel Jones. And I know how much Joe Judge, the new head coach, absolutely loves him. And the thing is, Jones has probably way more upside at this point than Prescott does. Because the truth of the matter is, what does Daniel Jones have as much to work with as Dak Prescott did last year? And I said this on my Twitter. So I basically kind of said something like that on my Twitter. And then there's a guy, and I like this guy very much. We talk on Twitter now and then. Max Toscano posted on his Twitter page, Dak Prescott is so much better than Daniel Jones that it isn't even worth saying. So my response to the tweet was, if he was that much better, wouldn't have Dak received his contract extension by now? And wouldn't he have been in the Eagles last year when Philadelphia was basically depleted with 10 thinking emojis? As I've said, if I'm Dak Prescott, I go tell my owner Jerry Jones to go take a hike and have a nice day. He doesn't need to be treated like this any longer because he's basically getting blackballed big time nonetheless. If this were Tony Romo, you don't think Tony Romo would have received his contract extension by now? As Stephen A. Smith always says about Jerry Jones, Tony Romo, that's like his adopted son. He definitely would have nonetheless. Prescott should do everything in his power to walk out of Dallas and find a new home next season because the treatment he's receiving is utterly disgraceful. Nonetheless, it's basically disgraceful how he's being treated nonetheless. So on to the NHL draft in 2020. Ah, yes. Desperation heave, desperation heave, desperation heave. That's what the NHL's doing here and trying to do this NHL draft even before the NHL season resumes. How could you have an NHL draft in the year 2020 before you resume play? And there was an excellent article that I read in the New York Post this morning. Before you do the NHL draft lottery, you cannot, Mr. Gary Bettman, the NHL commissioner, you cannot do the playoff, you cannot do the order based on when the stoppage occurred. You have to decide if you are going to do the draft, you have to cancel the regular season. And yes, I know that and I know it's going to lose money, and I guess the NHL draft kind of cancels it out, but you have a couple decisions to make before you do the NHL draft. Decision number one, what teams are going in the playoffs? Because isn't that what the NHL draft is? You have to decide which 16 teams are going in the postseason. You cannot have a draft until your playoffs is decided. Because then you can't just jump right back in the regular season and say I have a team like the Rangers and then they make the playoffs later. You can't do that. Or say a team like the Islanders who are in the playoffs right now, or like a team like the Blue Jackets or the Hurricanes, and then they drop out. You have to decide. Are you going 16, 18, 20, 22, or 24 teams in the postseason? I say stick to 16, and then you can decide your draft lottery based off of that. Once you decide your playoff field, then I would go with the draft lottery. You cannot, the NBA's waiting on its draft. And I know the NHL's losing money and is basically in a desperation, even trying to throw a Hail Mary from its own 20-yard line. But you have to decide right now if you're going to cancel the regular season. I mean, I understand and I know there are a lot of issues going on at stake. Who's going to get what? Compensation. You're not going to be able to really trade. And one of the teams that might be getting basically screwed over is Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh's going to have to decide two things. Number one, Jason Zucker, do you give that first-round pick to Minnesota now, or do you wait till next year? Number two, Patrick Marleau trade. And I didn't know, it's either the conditions is a second-round pick or a third-round pick. And I think one of those conditions is, I think it's a second-round pick, and Pittsburgh won the whole thing, and yet Pittsburgh, and obviously no one in the playoffs weren't even played. So that's going to, and I know there's going to be a call today and Tuesday with the NHL Board of Governors, and I'm curious to see how the old NHL draft is going to work out. And I haven't done much time or research on these players. I just decided to look up who the top 10 potential prospects are in the NHL draft, and I hope maybe on Thursday I can maybe try and get you, if they're going to do the NHL draft on like June 5th and June 6th, I want to try and give you some guys some potential insight on some of these players, because I thought I did a good job with it in the NFL, and I want to do a good job with it here as well in the NHL, because I feel like, and here's the thing about the NHL draft, very rarely some of these guys go into the NHL right away. A lot of these times they're going back to juniors for a couple of years so they can develop their game more. And that's how I find it. So, here are as of right now, and they also have to decide a draft lottery. The number one pick in the draft would be the Detroit Red Wings, and I think they need it in the worst way. It is sad that Detroit has become this bad. General manager Steve Yzerman is going to need some luck on his side for the 2020 NHL draft. So the general manager Steve Yzerman will need some luck in the draft on his side for the 2020 NHL draft. So let's see who the potential top 10 prospects are in the 2020 NHL draft. The projected number one pick, Alexis Lafreniere, left winger, the Rimouski Oceanic, and the QMJHL, that's the Quebec League. And he played in 52 games. He was basically a monster. 35 goals and 77 assists. Next prospect, Quentin Byfield, center for the Sudbury Wolves of the Ontario Hockey League. 45 games, 32 goals, and 50 assists. All I know is a lot of people, a lot of hockey fans love Byfield. They love Byfield. And a lot of teams are going to be happy with him at the number 2 selection, even if they don't get Lafreniere with the number 1 pick. Because right now, here's what's interesting. Here are 2 things about this draft that's interesting. 2 teams that could basically nail home runs in this draft. Number 1, Ottawa Senators could potentially have 2 top 5 picks. And Ottawa could be slowly but surely building a nice core. Maybe in the immediate future, you drafted Brady Tkachuk. You drafted Brady Tkachuk last year. And yeah, I think he's going to be very good in the immediate future. And then if you draft a guy like Byfield number 2 overall and then draft another guy, then you're maybe talking. And another team to keep an eye on in this draft, especially in the first round, is the New Jersey Devils. New Jersey, you got a new GM. And what's also interesting is they have their own pick. I'm curious to see what happens with the Arizona pick in the Taylor Hall trade, assuming they keep that. And I saw a tweet yesterday that the Devils could also have Vancouver's first round pick this year. And they acquired it from the Tampa Bay Lightning in the Blake Coleman trade. So that's going to be interesting to see because Ottawa and New Jersey basically could control the draft this year in the first round. And then you also have guys like, who else do you have in this draft? Tim Stutzel, center left winger from Adler Mannheim of the DEL League. Cole Perfetti, center Saginaw Spirit. I forgot. I believe that's the WHODOHL. I love how all these team names in like all these Canadian hockey leagues. And then you have this Yaroslav Askarov, Russian goalie in the SKA Niva St. Petersburg of the VHL. And that would be he's projected to be a top 10, top 15 pick. The last time a Russian goalie, or any goalie for that matter, a Russian goalie went in the first round, happens to be by the name of Andrei Vasilevsky of the Tampa Bay Lightning, who I think is the best goalie in the league. And then Lucas Raymond, right winger, left winger, Frölunda HC of the SHL. Jamie Drysdale, defenseman, Erie Otters, OHL. I might think Connor McDavid graduated from the Erie Otters. And now he plays on the Edmonton Oilers. Mark Rossi, center, Ottawa 67s. That's got to be the OHL. Alexander Holtz, right winger, Djurgårdens IF, SHL. And Noel Gunler, right winger, left winger, Lula HF, SHL. And Askarov played at a GA of 2.45 and a 920 save percentage. And I saw in a mock draft, I hope to maybe just like get in a mock draft on Thursday that just maybe potentially do the first round. The Minnesota Wild had him taking a goalie. Had him taking this guy. So, yeah. So the Wild, because they got Devin Dubnyk and Alexander Stalock, they're getting older. And moving on to the NHL rumors to restart the season. On the NHL Twitter page of the NHL Daily Rumors, and by the way, props to them, I think they have done an absolutely tremendous job. They posted that as first reported by the hashtag NRD. In Phase 2 of Return to Play Protocol, the NHL has identified mid-May as a date to allow players to hold informal skates at team facilities. Hashtag NRD has now learned that Phase 3 would see the reopening of training camps in the first week of June, followed by the resumption of the 2019-2020 regular season in mid-June. This is subject to state and federal health guidelines. However, this information has been updated to hashtag NRD. And now the Prime Minister of Canada is like, whoever comes into Canada, I guess all NHL players, including a guy quarantined for 14 days. And there's no way that the NHL is going to be able to play at all arenas because you're not going to be able to quarantine those guys for 14 days. They're going to have to figure out something. You're just going to have to find a way, somehow to get everyone into America. And I know the borders are closed right now in Canada, United States. They just got to find a way right now to, I guess, play in all American stadium in arenas, and basically find a way to finish the season, or you got to cancel the season, which I hope doesn't happen. He also mentions I will continue to follow up with the latest. The tentative plans for the 2020-2021 season to start with camps in late October, early November, and in caps if the NHL resumes play this season. Quote, all dressed up and nowhere to go yet, is how someone explained the latest protocol up to date, hashtag NRD, ... The flexible policies in place, however, much like the NBA, there's a lot of variables outside the control of the league. Parentheses, state/federal guidelines testing. TSN's Ryan Rushag posted on his Twitter page, totally in lockstep. Bill Daly, which is the NHL Deputy Commissioner, describing the relationship with the league and the PA right now, says he can't remember a time where they have been so much on the same page at Leafs Lunch 1050. So I find this very interesting basically for the sole reason that the NHL, I believe, is on the same page with one another. They want to get back to playing as soon as possible, and I don't think it's a mess. Here's another thing to keep an eye on with this. The NHL has potentially discussed a 2014 postseason, which I don't agree with. But the format to the playoffs would be very interesting. Other than the fact that the 1 and 2 seeds in each division battle out for the top spot, which I totally disagree with, and I personally think that the 1 and 2 seeds should just get a first round bye if they decide to go with a 2014 playoff, which I don't agree with either. I think it should just be 16 teams, That this format, it would be 6 versus 3 and 5 versus 4 in each division. And the interesting thing is, a team like the New York Rangers is out of the tournament because they are 7th in the Metro, which is arguably the best division in hockey. And yet you would have teams like the Anaheim Ducks, the Buffalo Sabres, and the Montreal Canadiens basically in the playoffs, which I 100% disagree with. And I have also mentioned that I believe hockey is going to be the first sport back before the rest of these sports happen nonetheless. And someone asked me the other day so I posted something on my Instagram. I asked a question of which sports do you think will be back first? And as a lot of people like to do, wrong answers only. So a lot of people, someone told me, I guess F hockey, like FS hockey or like field hockey or like figure skating. There are some other sports, I guess NASCAR and someone said to me basketball, and I'm like, I don't think basketball's coming back, not a chance. NHL, MLB, then I think the NBA cancels. And I know the NFL's trying to play the season on time this season, nonetheless. So, NBA rumors to restart the season. The NBA seems to be a big mess right now when it comes to restarting the league. There's a lot of friction, it seems, between the between the executives, the owners, the coaches, and the players. LeBron James posted on his Twitter status, saw some reports about execs and agents wanting to cancel the season, 3 question marks. That's absolutely not true. Nobody I know saying anything like that. As soon as it is safe, we would like to finish our season. I'm ready and our team is ready. Nobody should be canceling anything, crown emoji. Well. Isn't it something that this is happening? Because there's a rift and a power struggle, it seems, in all of this nonetheless. Forget the NBA coming back this season, ladies and gentlemen. CNBC reported about this the other day. Nonetheless, and now players are going to be passive-aggressive. Another thing that just stood out to me is, according to Sam Amick and Joe Vardon of The Athletic, if a player has a private gym at home, great. Many have said they do not. Others, according to multiple sources, are practicing secretly on their own at gyms that are supposed to be closed. The NBA plans on opening next season in December, and it will most likely be on Christmas Day nonetheless. The playoffs will be in June and July, and the offseason will be in September, with the NBA draft also free agency nonetheless. So, my issue with the NBA coming, but the NBA is, what's going to happen? Like, I really think the NBA is in trouble because I believe Vegas, MGM, basically offered them, I think it was them, the NHL, the MLS, and some other sports, to go back to basically offer them the Vegas Strip. And I was trying to find something on CBS Sports the other day, but I guess I had a tough time finding it because I saw one of my friend's Snapchats with that potential the NBA and the Vegas Strip. I think that'd be interesting to see if they could find a way to finish the regular season and the playoffs. And it's May. Obviously, today's May. Today is May the 4th be with you. So, a lot of Star Wars. I don't know how many of you guys are into Star Wars. But I know how much. I saw an interesting, what did I see? A couple interesting New York Giants Star Wars. And I know I tagged a couple of friends in it this morning. And one of them's like to me, oh, yeah, that's cool. And I'm just like, yep. So I'm like sitting here. Yeah, I'm just sitting here today on the May the 4th. And she's like, nice day outside. It's like, oh, when are sports going to return? I'm curious to see what's going to happen come next Friday, May 15th, where potentially a decision where he's going to be like, okay, we're going to cancel the season. Because that's potentially a big day next Friday. NBA, NHL, or the MLB are going to potentially cancel their seasons because with a lot of payday and stuff to that extent. So one of my last topics I'm going to talk about today. So, bet. Who likes to bet on a lot of things? I do. Actually, no, I don't like to bet on a lot of things. I know other people like to bet. I know on the herd Fox Sports 1, they were doing this last week. So over under wins for each team for the 2020 NFL season. Here we go. I'm not a huge bettor, but let's start with the Baltimore Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs at 11.5. These wins are projected by William Hill, and this is according to them. So, what do I think the Baltimore Ravens? I think they're going to be under 11.5 wins. They will still win the AFC North at probably 11. Maybe 10. And the Kansas City Chiefs will win over 11.5 games because good luck trying to stop that offense. And I'm not sure if they're going to show any signs of a Super Bowl hangover. Next, the New Orleans Saints and the San Francisco 49ers at 10.5 wins. The New Orleans Saints will be under 10.5 wins because, number one, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to win that division. And number two, I think the Saints are going to take a step back this season. They're not winning 13 games. And as for the San Francisco 49ers, they may win that division by Thanksgiving this year, early December. I was shocked when they had to take in the final week of the year last year to win that division despite how good they were. And I believe that the 49ers are going to win 12, 13 games this year. Next, the Green Bay Packers are at 10 wins, projected to be at 10 wins this year. Easily under. Friction going on in the Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers doesn't like it very much. And I think it's going to cause them to struggle and get traded. And plus the Minnesota Vikings got better and the Chicago Bears got better. The Dallas Cowboys, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Seattle Seahawks, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are at 9.5. I'm going to take the over 9.5 for Philadelphia and Tampa Bay. Eagles are going to win 10, 11, 12 games. Maybe 13 or 14 for the Eagles, and they'll run away with the NFC East. And Tampa Bay is going to win 11 to 12 games, with Tom Brady basically coming to town this year. And, yeah, so it's like Carson Wentz. Yeah, Carson Wentz, and Tom Brady. And then here we go. Dallas and Seattle will be under 9.5 wins. The Dallas Cowboys are not going to be very good this year. And the Seattle Seahawks, when are we going to realize that they're being too Russell Wilson dependent is finally going to catch up to them? Next, the Los Angeles Rams and the Minnesota Vikings are at 9. Rams will be under. The Vikings will be over. And the Buffalo Bills, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the New England Patriots are at 9. Buffalo will be over. Pittsburgh and New England will be under. The Chicago Bears, the Indianapolis Colts, the Tennessee Titans, and the Cleveland Browns are 8.5. I'm going to take the over on all of them except for potentially Chicago. First of all, the Titans are going to win the AFC South at probably 10 or 11 wins. Indianapolis will be a better team this year. They're going to win at least 9 or 10 and be a wild card team. And Cleveland's got the talent to win more than 8.5 games. I see them winning 9 to 10 as well and getting into the playoffs. Chicago could be a little tricky. It's going to depend if it's Nick Foles or Mitch Trubisky at starting quarterback. That's what it's going to depend on. And then, next, the Houston Texans at 8. I'm taking the under for the Texans. I don't like their defense at all, but I kind of agree with my brother with their offense could be good, but their defense isn't going to stop anybody. Unless you got Deshaun Watson and Brandon Cooks, and you got all these other players, and Deshaun Watson is the heartbeat and the heart and soul of the Houston Texans, and he's probably gone after this year or next year, and they're going to lose him, probably. And then the Atlanta Falcons, the Las Vegas Raiders, the Los Angeles Chargers, and the Denver Broncos are at 7.5. I'm taking Atlanta and Denver to be over 7.5. I think Atlanta wins 8 or 9 and gets a wild card spot. And Denver, I think, is going to win double-digit games this year, 10 or 11, and be the number 5 seed in the AFC. Because I don't think they're going to win the division over the Kansas City Chiefs. Unless something drastically happens to Kansas City, like Patrick Mahomes gets hurt or they have a really bad year. And I think the Las Vegas and Los Angeles are both going to be under. I think the Raiders took a step back because I think they had an absolutely horrible draft. And then the Chargers, I don't think are ready yet despite the Super Bowl caliber roster, because Tyrod Taylor's only going to take him so far. He's a game manager like Alex Smith. And Justin Herbert's probably not going to be ready to play yet. Next up, the Arizona Cardinals, the New York Giants, the New York Jets, and the Detroit Lions at 6.5. Everyone's going to be over 6.5 except for Detroit. Giants are going to win 9 games. Be in the playoffs, maybe 10. The Jets are going to win. I'm going to say Jets are going to win 8 games. Cardinals are going to win 7 to 8. And Detroit's going to be over, and the Detroit Lions are going to be under because the Lions, technically speaking, are still the Detroit Lions nonetheless. And that's going to be it for Matt Patricia this year. And this may be it for Matthew Stafford, because if Patricia gets fired, a new coach may be like, we're going to start, because I spoke to someone on the phone about this the other day. We're going to be like, we're going to start over with everything. New quarterback, a new this. We're going to tear the whole ship down. That's what I think is going to happen. If Detroit does not go 8-8, 9-7, 10 or 6, or alone make the playoffs, they are going to tear the ship down in Detroit and start everything over. The Miami Dolphins are projected for 6 wins. If I know this is tricky, but I'm taking the even here for the Miami Dolphins. Listen, they're not ready yet. I still believe they're going to be in last. The 2021 or 2022 is when the Dolphins are really, it's going to be their time to shine, not 2020. And hey, it's no one's really time to shine in 2020 unless you're the Kansas City Chiefs before the coronavirus pandemic and won the Super Bowl. So Miami won 5 games last year. They're going to win, probably only one more this year. But I'm sure a lot of people may take the over on this one. I think it's going to be an even or an under. I believe this is an even or an under here. So, you're going to have Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to start the whole year. They're going to let Tua Tagovailoa sit the whole year as well. And then, the Carolina Panthers and the Washington Redskins are at 5.5. They will both be under. I think Carolina will show signs of growing pains, and I think they're going to be better than Washington. And here's the thing with Carolina. Carolina, you got Teddy Bridgewater, and yes, you got basically the toughest division in the NFL. But you're playing in the same division with New Orleans. Tampa Bay and Atlanta. That's who you're basically playing in the same division as. And then you also have, you basically draft the young defense, Yetur Gross-Matos, Jeremy Chin, and Derek Brown. And I know Dave Tepper, the new owner, and Matt Rule, the new head coach, are basically trying to establish their own culture. And basically, Rule fixed the program overnight at Temple University and the University of Baylor with their football programs nonetheless. So the Cincinnati Bengals are projected at 5. I say they're going to be over 5. They'll win 6 or 7. Joe Burrow is going to show signs of, and they're going to show signs of growing pains as well, Cincinnati. But, yeah, and then Washington, let me go back to Washington for a second. They're going to be under because Dwayne Haskins and that offense is going to be so inept offensively challenged nonetheless. And then despite their good defense with Chase Young. And then Cincinnati is going to be over 5 wins this year. Nonetheless, and then Jacksonville Jaguars at 4.5. I say they're going to be over 4.5 because I think they'll find a way to win at least 5 games this season nonetheless. I just think they are going to find, so I think these teams are just, I just think some of these betting lines are utterly ridiculous. So in the final 2 minutes of the show here, so MLB, according to John Heyman, MLB has come to an agreement with umpires for the 2020 season. This probably means we're one step closer in beginning the MLB regular season, but it will be interesting to see where it is going to be played at nonetheless. It will either be played in places like Florida, Texas, Arizona, or it could potentially be at their own respective ballparks. I mean, I'm real curious to see how this is. I'm real curious to see how this is all going to wind up with baseball. And speaking of baseball, who watched the movie the other night? I don't know how many of you guys watch movies, but how many of you guys all watched the Major League 2? I thought it was funny. And the picture's like, he dates this teacher and he goes out with this, also looks like this. He goes out with this Italian girl. I'm like, what is this guy doing? Why does he break up with... First of all, why does he break up with the Italian girl and go back to the teacher? I don't understand that. When I texted my friend that the other day, I'm like, what is he doing? And he basically... And I know the guy's like got confidence back because of his that teacher and basically whatever else. But I know, and the manager had a heart attack of some sorts. And yeah, and then I know he's going crazy in the hospital bed and doctors don't understand what he was doing. So I'm just curious to see how this is all going to watch all the other movies. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of time here. Thanks for tuning in to Glenn's Dynamic Sports Corner. I am your host, Glenn Kaplan. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day and also stay safe as well. We'll be back on the air at the same time Thursday. We'll go over some potential NBA and NHL topics. I have some more 2020 NFL draft topics, some NFL topics as well, nonetheless related to it. Nonetheless, along with the MLB as well. I hope you all take care, be safe, and be well. Love you all. Be back here on Thursday, hopefully.